Hi guys, it's Charlie with Boxing Focus. Um, yeah, Kovalev, Pascal, what a great fight that was. It was a little bit of a shame in the end because I felt that we were robbed by an early stoppage of fight of the year candidate. It was turning into a real barnstormer for the fans. Yeah, where better to start than the early stoppage, really. It wasn't the worst early stoppage in the world. Let's be fair to the ref. Let's be fair to Kovalev. He was pretty dominant in the fight. Pascal, I mean, we'll go into a strategy later, but it was a horrible one because he'd started slowly. He'd let Kovalev come at him, and Kovalev was hurting him, and he'd been wobbled several times. So, in the sense that Pascal was, he was in a bad spot and he was dazed. You can tell he was dazed because of the way he reacted to a rather confused moment in the ring where he should have been counted because he falls into the ropes after being nailed by a three-punch combination, and then Kovalev probably, possibly, depends on your perspective, could have been counted because he goes down on a flash left hand from Pascal, although I don't think it really connected cleanly. But still, goes down as the result of a punch. That means a count. And yeah, he's gone to the neutral corner. He's expecting the referee to do something, and the referee's not done it. And then Kovalev's just gone after him, and the ref jumped in almost immediately. Two punches land, and the ref says that's enough. I don't like it, guys. I don't like it, and I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, we got to protect the fighters from themselves. Safety first." This is World Championship boxing. This is World Championship boxing. Can you imagine if the same standard had been applied to, I don't know, Castillo Corrales or Ward and Gatti, or you think of all the great fights down the years where guys have been reeling and they've come back to win. I mean, even like Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hearns. Ray Leonard was copping a beating in that fight. Could you imagine if that fight had been stopped because Ray took a couple of punches in succession and was looking a bit dazed and the ref jumped in? Because he was at points in that fight. It's unbelievable that this is now considered an acceptable way or moment to stop a World Championship boxing match in. It's the death knell of the sport. It really is, because if this is the new standard of boxing, the classic fights of the past will be no more in the future. They will be no more. We will not have crazy back and forth battles because the second that somebody's badly hurt, the refs are going to jump in and stop the fight. It's an absolute no. It was a terrible stoppage, and I know that Pascal was dazed and hurt, but he wasn't out on his feet. He was not knocked out on his feet. He still had a bit about him. You can see he was still moving his upper body as the ref jumped in between them. Alright, he wasn't in great shape, but he was not out on his feet. He was not going down. Kovalev was not in the midst of finishing him off. It was just not a good time to stop the fight. But obviously, with the momentum on Kovalev's side, you had to. It wasn't as bad as the outrageous stoppage in the Josehito Lopez Andre Berto fight. I mean, that was disgraceful. Lopez winning all the rounds on the cards or on any sane card. All right, gets hurt, goes down, beats the count. Berto rushes him, drops him with a swift, not even really hard punches, a flashing double jab to blind Lopez, and then comes in behind that rather, with a straight right. And Lopez is back to his feet immediately, and then it's waved off. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The sport is going. It's going the wrong way. It is the hurt business. Guys have to be given a chance to ride out a storm. Pascal had to be given a chance to ride out the storm in that situation. He was not defenceless. It's only when a fighter is defenceless that the referee should come in and stop the fight. He was not bust up. He had barely a mark on him. He had a bit of a black eye. He wasn't bleeding anywhere obvious. He wasn't suffering anywhere obvious. He was just dazed and took a couple of punches. So what? That's boxing. Unbelievable. And these people are defending the stoppage. And people saying that Pascal was done. He was not done. He was not done. And we were robbed of a fight of the year candidate. I'm telling you, Pascal was not done in that moment. And he was gonna do something. He was at least gonna give it one last go before going out on his shield. And he was due that opportunity. Again, this is World Championship boxing. You can't be stopping it that quickly. But anyway, frustration at that aside, I actually picked Pascal to win. That's not why I'm pissed off that he was stopped. Not at all. I thought that he had the attributes to unsettle Kovalev, and we saw it. In a few moments. We saw it in the 5th round. But Pascal's problem was his strategy for this fight was all wrong. Kovalev, on the other hand, even though I thought Pascal might upset him and snatch a tight split decision or a very narrow margin on the cards, Kovalev did exactly what I expected him to do. He came forward with his bruising combinations. He boxed very well, boxed beautifully even at times, but other times he was made to miss quite a lot. So we got to see him being human for once. He got backed up with some shots to the body. So it was interesting from that standpoint, but it was more or less what I expected for Kovalev, which may sound surprising, given that I had tabbed Pascal to cause the upset. But the problem was not that Kovalev was too good. As good as Kovalev was, I expected him to be good. The problem was Pascal's strategy was woeful. And there were warning signs before the fight, things that I didn't really pick up on, or things that I chose to ignore. Depends on your perspective on subjectivity. They kept on bringing it up. Roy Jones mentioned it several times. Pascal even said it himself. All the analysts were saying it. All the fans were saying it. Kept on, Pascal is going to gas. Pascal is going to gas. He has stamina problems. He has trouble late in fights. I mean, this is a guy that has never been stopped, so his stamina problems can't. They just can't be that bad. I mean, it's just it's a ridiculous seed to have sown so deep in Pascal's psyche that he spent the first 4 rounds just backing away from Kovalev. You could see it in his heart, in his eyes. He didn't have the confidence to engage, and it's not because Kovalev was a hard puncher. It's because he did not want to tire late in the fight. And it ruined his strategy because it played right into Kovalev's hands. By backing up like that, by just not engaging, he wasn't giving Kovalev pause for thought, or he wasn't giving him a reason not to attack. And by the time Pascal started throwing back at Kovalev, the pendulum had swung and he was in trouble. He let Kovalev get into his rhythm. He let Kovalev get into his groove when he had the capacity to at least ask Kovalev serious questions. And we saw it. We saw it when he in that 3rd round, and he backs up with his head in the air and his hands down because he's just thinking about how can he move around the ring and save energy. And Kovalev says, "Thank you very much." Left hook, right hand, and Pascal's rocked. And then he gets hit more often. Once he's been hurt once, it becomes harder for him to react to Kovalev's shots, and he starts losing a bit of his speed. And it took him until the 5th round to really fully recover from that moment. And then he digs in, and then we see what Pascal could have been doing from the very beginning of the fight. We saw him throwing big shots to the body of Kovalev. We saw Kovalev uncomfortable. He didn't like it. And he had to. I mean, it's not that Kovalev is easy to beat. It's not that Kovalev is. He's obviously an incredibly strong, big light heavyweight. And to Kovalev's credit, he made adjustments in the subsequent round to make it harder for Pascal to continue that body assault or attack. But at the same time, Pascal had just left it too late because he would have been fresher in the beginning. He would have been able to land faster, harder shots. Instead, he's having to take more and more risks. And once Kovalev's adjusted and made it harder for Pascal to just jump in and go to the body, Pascal then starts reaching. He starts swinging, or he starts sitting on the ropes and swinging with, trying to knock Kovalev out with giant counters. He starts getting desperate because he's backed himself into a corner. Pascal needed to come into that fight with more self-belief. He needed to come into that fight thinking, right, I'll fight my fight and I'll deal with feeling tired when I feel tired. Let's put it on Kovalev. Let's hurt him. Let's back him up. Let's take his offense away. Because if you're backing him up, he can't sit down on his punches. He can't press forward. He can't fall into them. You're giving him the momentum by backing away, letting him leap in with punches, letting him corner you and turn into them. You've got to back him up, just like he did in that 5th round. That's what he should have been doing from round 1. And then maybe Kovalev doesn't hurt Pascal so early. Maybe he doesn't lay a bit of a beating on him. And he certainly wouldn't have had the opportunity to stop him like that. And then Pascal would not have left the ring thinking, saying even, that he was full of energy still, that he hadn't expended energy, that he was going to make a strong comeback. And I'll be honest, I do not believe that Pascal was making a comeback to stop Kovalev. I think he had it in him to ride out the storm. I think he had it in him to maybe stretch it to a decision and perhaps grab a couple more rounds. But honestly, odds on it was Pascal was going to get stopped in that fight at some point. But looking how strong he was and the kind of furious pace that Kovalev had set, I don't think Kovalev could have maintained that for 12 rounds. I think Pascal could have at least seen out the fight, but the pendulum had already swung against him. He'd already taken enough damage that he'd lost that speed and athleticism and confidence that he needed to trade on early in the fight. Terrible, terrible tactics by Pascal, and he leaves the ring with regrets, ruining, not fighting his fight. And he even says if there was a rematch, he would just get on with it earlier. Well, there may be a rematch, but in a rematch, Kovalev wins. This was your one chance to surprise him, and you didn't take it. Kovalev, already we saw in that fight, was making adjustments to the kind of attacks that Pascal was laying on him. Pascal needed to make the most of the fact that it was the first time that they were fighting. I would have tabbed Kovalev to win a rematch most likely anyway. Unless of course Pascal pulled out a miracle knockout, but he was never going to with these tactics, and I don't think he would have done anyway, even if he fought a perfect fight. Just frustrating to see that guys come at a fight. So naive. You're a world championship boxer in the best condition of your career, having never been stopped, having gone the distance multiple times in tough fights. Have faith in your conditioning, man. Worry about being tired when you're tired. It's frustrating. There's a saying, anxiety doesn't change the future and regrets don't change the past. And Pascal epitomises that bloody phrase at this point in time. This is Childhood Boxing Focus. I really enjoyed the fight. Really impressed with Kovalev, although, like I said, it's exactly what I expected from him in the first place. And a little bit frustrated with Pascal, who's now talking about going up to heavyweight to fight Bermain Stavern. Not sure what to make of that. Unfortunately for Pascal, he's no Roy Jones Jr. I don't think he should. Kovalev, of course, is chasing Adonis Stevenson, or as I like to call him, I don't want this Stevenson. I hope the fight gets made, but it may be another kind of a smaller, less well-known equivalent to Pacquiao and Mayweather. It just may be stalled out over a long time. I would expect Kovalev to beat Stevenson at this point in time. I would have tabbed Kovalev to beat Stevenson before the Pascal fight. Like I say, my thoughts on Kovalev haven't really changed at all. Pascal, I don't know. I'd like to see him fight Stevenson as well after Kovalev, but knowing Stevenson, it may be before Kovalev. I think Pascal could cause Stevenson problems, but again, if he falls into this bloody silly trap of trying to conserve energy and not getting on with the actual fight, then he would come a cropper again. Anyway, it's just Charlie with Boxing Focus. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the fight too.